Russo's hairline.
That's the beginning of the show. Is you grunting and complaining about a parody account.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that this one existed.
Well, I think this is, I don't know. I can't keep track of them all.
I think a new one.
Is it? I think it's been around a couple months at least. It's so hard to keep track of them now.
It must be. It's got 84 followers.
I wonder if they have meetings.
Yeah.
I wonder if, like, you go to a bar some night and there's Russo's hairline and Russo's slacks, and of course you'd never go to that bar again. So
no, I would not at all. Russo's bald spot's another one. There's way too many Twitter accounts.
I think Russo slacks should sue for copyright infringement.
Exactly. Anything to get rid of them all. Whatever happened to Russo's rabbi? That was the best one.
That was a good one. I think he, I don't know, probably threading the needle to find ways to make fun of you in a religious sense.
I know.
That's different from all the other ways we make fun of you.
Yeah. How are you doing, Jim?
I'm good, and that's what Michael does when he wants to change the subject. This is the Russo-Souhan Show. He's Michael Russo from The Athletic. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune. We talk about the Wild, the NHL, and a lot of weird stuff on this show. This is our hockey show on talknorth.com. Check out the website. Also, as we move forward, if you care about this show and the network, we appreciate it. As we start talking to larger advertisers, larger companies around the country, they value downloads. When we sell locally to sponsors such as Twill and Fixology and Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin, they know Michael, they like the show, they know that we have a large social media presence, they're kind of buying that. Now that we're starting to sell to national companies, downloads are important. If you have a choice between downloading or listening in another fashion, do us a favor and download. That would be great. Also, if you have any questions for me or want to sponsor the program with your business, send me an email, jsouhan47@gmail.com. Let's get into it. We're at the press conference. I asked Craig Leopold a question, and I accidentally say Mike instead of Matt, talking about the process. And, of course, Craig jumped all over me, rightfully so, because I screwed up. And, of course, you're in the front row, and you're loving it because it's free pub for Michael Russo.
Yeah, he I don't even think that you meant Mike Russo, but he took it as Matt. Like that Mike Russo helped him with the
I did not mean that.
With the jam search. I think I did help him.
Well, you're always very helpful.
I certainly bothered him enough throughout the process. Not that I got a lot of info out of him, but like I am one of those people that you try to confirm everything you're hearing, and so I will say Craig tolerates a lot from me. It's unbelievable. I'm convinced that he doesn't fire people just so he doesn't have to hear from me, because it was the amount of texts that I got, especially that week, the amount of texts I sent him that weekend, just trying to get any morsel of information. But the reality is that this process, at the very beginning, I think we all knew that Paul Fenton was going to be the front runner. Tom Fitzgerald's credit, he got down to the nitty gritty and was back here for the last Thursday before he made the decision. 2 days later, he made the decision. As of Friday night, he was still waffling from everybody that tells me that knows Craig. And then I think when it came down to him, he went with the experience factor. Somebody that has kind of been in the situations and dealt with, big trades and great drafting and has the experience to maybe get this team out of the funk that it's in. And it isn't a funk. I mean, look, I don't take anything, I don't scoff lightly at the fact that they've made the playoffs 6 straight years, but this team is not close to the other teams in this conference. You and I have been saying this for a long, long time. And they've got to figure out a way to get it over the hump, and they feel that Paul Fenton, with that experience, having the guts to make big-time moves, will help in the long run. And we'll see. I expect him to make a splash here before the draft. I really do. I do. I mean, he's not going to come back status quo with this team. And so now the question is, what does he do to kind of tinker?
And my take on this, as I know, because you read everything I write immediately just to keep up with what's going on in Minnesota sports, I like Fenton. I think he's a good hire, but I question the process. Mm-hmm. Craig and Matt or Mike or whatever his name is, just the two of them doing all the interviews and hiring the person that Craig knew best. It could work out. It could end up being a good hire. I think Fenton's a good category. But it just, if I owned a team that was in a rut, I would be looking for more fresh perspective.
Right. I will say this. Of the people that I listed that he talked to, Paul Fenton, Tom Fitzgerald, Julien Brisebois, Bill Zito, John Ferguson Jr., Dave Nonis. I feel like I'm forgetting one. Billy Guerin. Of all the people, if you take the experience factor, Paul is probably the most qualified.
I agree.
So now the question is, and that's my biggest thing with this, is that I don't feel like this is a normal situation. I just think that there are a lot of challenges with this franchise. And the challenges that I'm referring to are a lot of cap space tied up into a handful of guys, not a lot of bustling prospects, have to make major decisions on these restricted free agents, going up in a conference against teams that are faster and essentially more talented. And because of those challenges, I feel like to have a rookie GM like a Tom Fitzgerald or a Billy Guerin would be a risk. You have to have the personality to know the guys. So Julien Brisebois and Bill Zito, I think, put them out of it right away. And then the other thing to me is to go with a retread like John Ferguson Jr. or Dave Nonis, who, conceivably didn't do well in their previous jobs, just made no sense. So of the candidates, I just think that this was probably the decision that was inevitable.
Oh, I agree.
But I agree with you from the standpoint, I went on a rant 2 podcasts ago, like who the hell's asking the hockey questions in these things?
Exactly.
So to me, where Craig probably needed to have somebody in there is somebody that is more of a hockey guy. Mm-hmm. Whether it's one of his inner circle people
you were available.
Or me, I definitely would have asked the right questions. And so so that was probably the one area that I think that just, being able to delve deep on the innards of this team and then the history of that person, and ask those type of questions. The other thing is, in terms of the process that you said, is that, when I asked the question to Craig about, do you still have the same opinion that you did 4 weeks ago, that this team needs tweaks and not a rebuild? And he said, well, everybody agreed with me. Well,
depends how you ask the question.
If you want the job, you better agree with the guy what the prerequisite is.
Also, I've spent the last 20 years hearing Sid ask questions like this. You're not going to fire so-and-so, right? You're not going to fire... And they go, oh, God, I don't want to argue with Sid. No, Sid, we're not going to fire that guy. And then they fire him the next day. They just didn't want to answer. How you ask a question sometimes determines what kind of answer you get.
Exactly. So it'll be just... I'll just say this. To me, tweak, rebuild, whatever the thing is, I think he's going to make bold, big moves. I really do. And so that is what I think is going to – whatever you think should happen here, to me, the process that he's going to make is the process that's got to be done, if that makes any sense. So what I'm saying is that you have a situation where little tinkerings are not going to work and really couldn't work for this franchise. He's going to have to make big moves. And so what Craig is saying is that he doesn't want him to make the big moves, but get a bunch of prospects and picks back. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to trade Matt Dumba in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, make sure you get a good amount of players back, assets back that can help this team. And those are the type of things that I just think that he's going to consider. And Dumba is frankly one guy that I actually think is somebody that could potentially be gone. Because right now, if you traded a Matt Dumba, you could probably get a good amount back for him, and then you can use either the assets that you get back for him as quality players right away off the hop, or you can go and acquire another right shot defenseman, or you can go and sign another right shot. So in other words, if you are a little afraid to give long-term money to Matt Dumba, well, then go sign John Carlson. Go trade for Justin Falk. The good Justin Falk, by the way, not the bad one. There are moves to be made out there. Same thing. If you want to get a little cushion and trade a Nino Niederreiter to get rid of that contract, but you can, as long as you know that you can go out and spend that money. And so when I look at this team right now, and you look at the tradable assets that aren't going to be trading guys for picks and prospects, they don't have a lot of picks, and they don't have a lot of that they're going to want to get rid of when you have a pretty barren prospect core, and you don't have a lot of prospects that you can really trade right now. What are the moves that could potentially be made? It's pretty obvious. It's going to be Dumba. It's going to be Coyle. It's going to be Niederreiter. I'm not saying I'm saying
One of them.
You know, it could be Brodin. It's going to be those type of guys that are on their way out. And I just really think that, one, that Paul Fenton's going to make his mark right now and make that quote-unquote splash. But I think also he knows that the owner wants him to go in there, and again, whatever term you want to use, he wants him to make a move that's significant enough to help this team get over the hump. And what's going to help this team get over the hump if you're not rebuilding? It's going out and getting significant assets, and there's only a certain amount of guys that can get you those assets.
TWILL.
It was a long way to get to that.
That was good. TWILL. Twill in the Edina Galleria. It's TwillMN on Twitter. TwillMN.com. It's Twill on Instagram. I recently went out to Scott Dayton's shop in the Edina Galleria, bought some stuff. Johnny O shirts. I got a Johnny O golf shirt, a Peter Millar long sleeve shirt. They have a lot of golf stuff these days. They have shorts. They have a lot of seasonal stuff, as well as the usual stuff, tailored clothing, accessories, outerwear, shoes. Please check out Twill in the Edina Galleria. They've been supporting this podcast for years now.
Hi, I'm Stacy Souhan. I love Twill, Scott Dayton's shop in the Edina Galleria. Twill takes the stress out of shopping by offering updated traditional fashion. I know that if Jim goes in there shopping alone, I will like what he buys, whether it's pajamas, flannel shirts, or suits. I plan to recommend Twill to my daughter when she has to buy wedding party gifts and attire. Twill in the Edina Galleria will bring your fashion game to a championship level.
Another thing that struck me at the press conference, Mike, is a few players showed up, and I looked over, and sitting in a row were Suter with his crutches, Parisi coming off some back problems, and Mikko, who had a terrible year. Mm-hmm. What, can anything be done with that threesome given their contracts?
Probably not. I mean, again, Suter is not going anywhere.
Right.
And I think in the playoffs, the way the Wild played from the back end is reinforcement of why he should not go anywhere.
No, he's a good player.
And also, again, he's not waving his no move to get out of here.
Right.
I mean, he signed here for a reason. And the other thing is that he's coming off a major injury, and nobody's going to take that risk right now.
I wasn't saying you should trade these three. I'm just saying that they're locked into this franchise, and they each has his own individual problem he's trying to overcome. What's going to become of that threesome?
Right. But remember with Zach had a great second half. March on, he was one of the best forwards in the league offensively, and his injury, I mean, it looks to me like the back is not an issue anymore, and he broke his sternum in a fluke play. So assuming that he's going to be able to come back and be good for a full season, that's good. Mikko is the issue. Mm-hmm. It just is. Yep. I know that fans you have the Mikko haters, and then you have the ones that are extremely protective of Mikko. And I think that most people that listen to this podcast or read me or listen to me in other avenues know that I'm actually usually part of the protective group. But the guy did not perform well in the playoffs, other than Game 3 when everybody did. But he couldn't win a draw, and it's a huge issue. And now it is an interesting. I'll be interested to see how they come into next season, because I think if the coach had his way, Mikko would be the third line center on this team. I mean, he essentially said it the other day. I wrote a story about Charlie Coyle, and he said on the record in that story, and it wasn't just a slip of the mind, we have to come up. Is he third line right wing, or is he a second line center? And I think in his mind, he'd love him to be the second line center and just have him in one spot, rather than always switching around the lineup and feeling, and so then you put Mikko in more of a checking line role there. But now it's funny. I mean, back in last fall when they signed with the extension, I thought it was something they had to do. And now in hindsight, you just like, all right, again, everything's easier in hindsight, but you're just like, you kind of wish that they waited. And a lot of people around the league are wondering if the Wild would trade Eric Staal, just because he's a year from his contract being over. So now is the time that you talk to him either about an extension, or you maybe consider